Welcome to the Fortify Data Podcast. I'm here with Kevin Greene. Now, Kevin, you work at the Cleveland School of Cannabis.
Yes.
So I'm very excited to kind of take a shift from the last couple of podcasts that have really been heavy into blockchain. Okay. And you don't implement anything with blockchain, right?
No.
Perfect. I'm really excited to get out of that world just for a little bit, you know.
All right.
Obviously, this is kind of a different term from like hardcore technology, but certainly this is something that is reliant on technology and uses a lot of technology.
Yep.
And it's something that I don't know a whole lot about, so I'm very interested in kind of learning about the industry, how that's affecting things, different kind of things with legislation that you have to deal with, just your world. So before we dive into that, tell me kind of how you came to be, kind of running the team with the Cleveland School of Cannabis, and even beyond that, what you did before that to lead you here.
So my history, my career history has been in marketing and business development, public relations, and things of that sort. Came out of school, got a job with T-Mobile, did some marketing analytic work with them. Then I went ahead and actually started my own marketing firm in 2012 with a couple partners. At that point, we did a lot of work in community development. We worked with a lot of schools. We did a lot of initiatives where it was basically we were trying to build a bridge between community and business. We noticed that there was a big gap, and when we speak about technology, there was the transition of what was going on from a social media standpoint with marketing, right? So we were some young guys in our 20s, and every business owner, the average business owner is about 40-something years old, and they knew nothing about the internet, and this was going to be the new wave of how you actually market your business. So we use that as our positioning statement. Our positioning statement to be able to go ahead and actually get into the market, penetrate the market, and actually start a really big, really good firm. We had a lot of focus on how do we go ahead and really develop communities. So a lot of our marketing work that we end up taking a lot of clients, we're working with colleges, we're working with schools, municipalities, small businesses, medium-sized businesses. So it gave us a lot of good understanding of how do you really work in tough situations, because when you're trying to build community, you have so many different demographics that you're trying to get on one page. That becomes a very difficult thing, especially when you're thinking about any type of product launch or you're thinking about revitalizations going on in neighborhoods. How do you please the entire community? That's like the hardest thing to do from a marketing standpoint, is to have every demographic be able to buy into one thing. So I think what that did was perfectly position me to work in the cannabis industry, which is tough right now because we're still going, we're technically kind of still in a prohibition phase. We're not federally legal, and each state is going through its medical legalization and then its recreational legalization. So the cannabis industry provided an opportunity to me in 2016. I met the founder, Austin Briggs. We were actually traveling together on a plane, and I was talking to my other business partner, and he overheard us talking. We ended up noticing that we used the same connection in Dominican Republic where we both traveled for vacation. We got a chance to vacation together. He told me about what he was doing, and I said I can definitely help you from a marketing standpoint, because he was having a lot of issues from the digital side. Which is one of the major problems that we fall into, is that since it's not federally legal, when you're looking at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those things, we get blocked out of those channels due to the fact of the federal legalization and their policy.
From like advertising?
From advertising.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Which is a very odd situation for us, because we're not advertising the production or sale or the consumption of cannabis. We're promoting education. That's our 100% focus. So we get kind of tossed into it, and I guess obviously when the algorithm and the computer looks at us, and the Cleveland School of Cannabis is in the world, we're just automatically going to get chopped right away. So with our years of expertise in the digital space, our team was able to find some indirect ways to be able to go ahead and use those channels and really be able to step around the algorithm and things of that sort, and work within the ways of being able to kind of get our stuff to actually be digitally promoted through those channels. So at that point, we decided to go ahead, my business partner, my marketing firm decided to go ahead and become invested with Austin in the Cleveland School of Cannabis. I then took on the role of vice president. Tyrone took on the role of president of the school, and now we're 2 campuses strong. We have about 120 graduates. We have about 60-70% job placement. We fluctuate up and down every time of graduation. We just had a graduation in June, so we're getting everybody their job placement. And this has been a beautiful thing to see people that took a chance not only on us but on themselves, and now that are working in the industry. So when you're walking into these dispensaries that are here, especially Rise, that's right downtown in Cleveland, you're gonna be talking to Cleveland grads. You know, when you're in Garfield Heights at Terrasana, you're gonna be talking to Cleveland grads. You know, when you're in Whitcliffe Lake, you know, you're gonna be talking to Cleveland grads. Our cultivation sites that are around that you don't really get a chance to see them because they're a little bit more on the outskirts of the city. Cleveland grads are in there. Same thing with the processing lab. So it's been beautiful.
So what are you teaching? So obviously it's a school. So what do you teach and what kind of jobs do they fall into? And again, you're talking to somebody that doesn't know anything.
So our program is directly focused around workforce development. So the school started because we knew that there was going to be a gap in the workforce. Austin had some history in actually being in the cannabis market in Oregon and California. And his biggest issue was workforce development. How do I get an actual qualified workforce? The thing in the cannabis industry is a lot of people say they know how to do things, and the way this thing works is you don't find out until after harvest or what's going on or after the process, the fact that that person might not know exactly what they're doing, right? Also, just like any business, you're looking for qualified people, but you're also looking for hardworking people that are going to be committed, that you can build your business around and grow your business with, and hopefully grow with them. So we knew that Ohio, and truthfully everything east of Colorado, was going to have a shortage of developed and technical skills in the cannabis industry. And because over here on this side of the world, this side of America, the industry never got a chance to cultivate itself like it did in California and Oregon, right? So even though it was illegal, the culture there allowed people that wanted to be in the industry to actually develop their skill set. So Ohio, that was not happening. So we knew there was going to be a gap. So we developed 3 programs. One, a horticulture program, a cannabis dispensary program, and then a medical application of cannabis program and an extracts program, which specifically lines up with the job market here. So we have grow facilities that grow the cannabis. We have the processing labs where you get the extracts, the gummies, so all the different variables of how you actually interact with cannabis outside of the flower itself, and then the dispensaries, which is the frontline actual retail stores where patients can actually go ahead and purchase. So our programs line up directly with the job market, and that allows us to have so much success because we're giving employers exactly what they need from a skill standpoint, and then we're able to go ahead and work those relationships to connect our alumni directly with the job. So we've been able to create this ecosystem of equity for everyone. So the students are able to go ahead and win as alumni, the employers are getting exactly what they need so they can grow their business, and obviously our education company is going ahead and still being able to grow and still provide this education. So it's been a good road last couple years.
So how many? I guess I'm super ignorant to this. How many like dispensaries are in Ohio right now?
So 56 are allowed in Ohio. So licenses are awarded. Per the state.
Like a liquor license?
Correct, just like a liquor license. So you actually have to apply for it. You have to go through a whole application phase, and then you're awarded. So we have 24 cultivators that are actually growing. 12 of them are large. 12 of them are small. Now, when we say large and small, the large ones will be able to go up to 70,000 square foot of canopy space, and our smaller ones will be about under 6,000 square foot in the sense of their canopy that they're able to grow. So their facilities will be bigger than that, but their canopy space that they're able to grow cannabis on.
And that number is in the Cleveland area or
that
in Ohio?
That is in the entire state of Ohio. So as things grow, we're obviously most states have continued to expand their licenses. When it comes to processing labs, we're in about the 30 range of processing labs that will be around the state, and then dispensaries 56 have been awarded for the entire state in itself. So right now I would say overall in the industry we're not at 50% yet in full operation of the entire industry, meaning all of the licensees that have been awarded are not fully up and running yet. We are, month after month, more and more people are getting their operations up. There are a lot of licensee holders that what we call vertically integrated. That means they have all 3 licenses. So they're doing they're growing it and they're selling it and everything in between. So some of those have set up certain part of their operations before they set up others. So we're hoping within the next 2 years that the industry will be fully operational in the sense of the first awarded licensees that are available, and that will help in so many different ways in the sense of pricing and all this stuff and access to medicine for the patients that are in Ohio.
So now, so medical marijuana is legal in Ohio?
Yes, medical marijuana.
Now, what is the pathway for recreational marijuana to get to legal status?
So the pathway is, from my perspective, 2 ways. there's two things that need to get done. We need to have a successful medical program. A successful medical program looks in the sense of that our licensees stay basically in compliance and they're able to stay open in operation, and our patients are actually going ahead and signing up and using the medical program to actually acquire their cannabis and not using the black market anymore. That's going to be the first thing.
Right.
The second thing is going to be just like any other bill. It's going to be voting. And I think the way that we actually get people to vote is through education. The biggest roadblock that we fight in the cannabis industry is misinformed,
right.
underinformed, or the propaganda that we're going ahead and fighting against for the last 100 years of the cannabis plant. So the more people that are informed, even though that they might not be a recreational user or a medical user, the more people that are informed about cannabis, actually what it is, the benefits of it, how people interact with it, is going to allow us to be able to move forward to recreational a lot quicker.
Would you agree with the statement that if you smoke marijuana once, you will die?
No, because no one's ever died from marijuana.
Right.
So that's the whole situation.
Yeah. Right.
That's a fact.
Right. So that's obviously in the DARE curriculum of like the late 90s.
That's the generation that we grew up on, right?
Right. But so we have all that misinformation.
Yeah.
You're kind of fighting that. You're still getting blocked on social media though, to some extent.
Yeah, to some extent. Yeah.
How else are you getting the word out? Because obviously you have that marketing arm.
Yeah.
How do
So
deploy that?
the digital age is obviously again being 33 years old, been doing it, been on a computer since since I can remember. But I have never forgotten the sense of. Marketing is not just about one channel, especially when you're thinking about education, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to validate your company. You want to be able to validate what you do in multiple different ways, especially when we look at education. So we've worked very hard in being able to get into the traditional channel. So we do a lot of radio, we do billboards, we've been able to get on TV with commercials, things of that sort. We do a lot of news spots, and things of that sort. So definitely we do our best to try to get as much earned media. Due to the fact that we are being able to be connected so much to the industry and we provide so much to the industry in the sense of the workforce, we've been able to go ahead and work with a lot of the news stories that are going on as the industry continues to build. So we do a lot of community engagement. Our teams are out in Columbus and in Cleveland at different events pretty much every weekend.
Yeah.
We do a lot of educational seminars with some of the licensee holders, free education seminars to educate patients on how to go ahead and access medical cannabis, what is medical cannabis, because we understand if you're not even going to look to be an employee, we want to make sure that the general population is educated on this, because the more people that know what's going on, the more people will take advantage, because we only seem to look at cannabis right now in one channel, in the sense of what I should say, the marijuana, in the sense of that recreational or medical use, consuming it, right? But the biggest opportunity that is actually for the cannabis plant itself is going to be in hemp. It's going to be the largest textile that's going to be here, which is one of the main reasons that why marijuana was actually ever deemed illegal, was because the hemp product, in the sense that you can do from low THC cannabis, which we just passed our hemp bill here in Ohio, and which was federally passed last
CBD
year.
oil as well.
CBD oil and things of that
same bill,
sort, because it's lower than 0.03 THC, so it's a straight CBD, which is a legal, 100% legal product. Everything in this room would be able to be made by hemp, in the sense of the textile. So that's what happened back in like the early 1900s, was simply the fact that the cotton industry didn't want hemp to come in because it was a better textile. With cotton, you need to grow wide. With hemp, you can grow taller, so it's better. It's a more diverse plant for the soil, and it actually takes less water. It's easier to grow, and it's actually a stronger, better textile. If you look at the history books, which is a great class that we had, the history of cannabis, you really learn how many things were made of hemp in our daily lives back in the day, but also how many medical medicines actually had cannabis in it. So cannabis, we've been using this thing for hundreds of thousands of years. It just seems in the last 100 years we just went through a prohibition, and it was all about misinformation, and we're finally coming out of that. So it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
So now with the way your company's kind of structured, it's a school, so the students pay tuition. Then that's how you fund yourself.
That's correct.
You have a facility in Cleveland now, and you have one in Columbus.
That's correct.
How do you scale? How do you see this? How do you see your company a year from now? How do you see your company 5 years from now?
So it'll be two channels. We're working on in the sense of what it looks like to actually be able to open up our school in other states, especially emerging states. We see that's the biggest opportunity due to the fact that's the same blueprint that we took here in Ohio. There's going to be a gap in workforce, a lack of education, and there needs to be someone that's focused on being able to educate the public. Secondary will be online education. So we have launched our online curriculum as well. So all of our curriculum is now available online because we understand everyone's not going to be accessible to our brick and mortar location, but also it's 2020 now. So at the end of the day, online education is a way that the working adult and even young people now go ahead and actually educate themselves. So we want to be conducive to the marketplace and how people grow. So those will be our two ways of being able to kind of grow our school, and then also truthfully just the continued growth of the industry. Because the more things that are going on in the cannabis industry, there's going to be a need for more workforce, the more research that we're finally going to really start to have on the cannabis industry. That we've had research, but now the fact that things are moving progressively so more forward more and more, we're just going to see more research dived into. I mean, hopefully one day, the new Advil is going to be a cannabis product in itself. Okay. So.
And do you think that this is kind of going to invigorate some kind of research into other illegal substances that maybe don't have like a high death count? Obviously, I think heroin is objectively bad. I don't know if anyone's going to disagree with that. But there's some cases for LSD, mushrooms, and MDMA where they have some potential medicinal qualities. Do you think that this is kind of a stepping stone to that, or do you think this is completely separate?
So it's funny you say that, right? Because growing up in a day era, they used to say marijuana is a pathway drug, right?
Sure,
so you do marijuana, you're going to end up doing heroin, right? Marijuana and cannabis is the pathway to research for all the other drugs and all the other compounds that are out there. So we used to use that phrase in the sense of a negative term. It's truthfully a positive. So I do 100% believe that marijuana and our final, having critical dialogue around the cannabis plant and properties and other chemical properties that are out there in nature that technically we've tested and actually used in medical purposes before. Because most of the things that we use when we're looking at heroin, it is not very far from when you're looking at morphine drip. It's not too far from the compound. It is the same chemical compound to your body. It's how it's administered, it's how it's regulated, it's how it's actually created is what comes down to it. And that only way that we're going to get there is research. When we look at all of our antidepressants, that comes from MDMA and ecstasy. That's where that world comes from when we were looking into psychedelics and things that in the 50s and 60s. That all comes from that. So for us to go ahead and be in a stage right now where cannabis has leading the way, all of these other compounds that are out there that truthfully not only that we use in our society now, also that have been used in many different societies before us to be able to go ahead and be having healing properties. So cannabis is the gateway drug, and it's the gateway to research, and it's the gateway to more opportunities to healing for the world.
Why do you think all those other drugs, obviously there's the cotton industry that kind of stifled marijuana. Do you think it's just the medical industry that said, listen, we need to stifle all these psychedelics?
I think it's a combination. I think the biggest thing, so we're always going to have, we're always going to have parties that are playing a bigger game than we can see by the naked eye, right?
Right.
That's always going on.
Well, Kellogg's got bread to be the most consumed thing, right?
Exactly, right? You know what I mean? When you think about cereal, all these commercials, all the things you think about milk, all the things that are going on, right? I'm in marketing, right? So at the end of the day, I understand what's being done. I understand what's going on, and we're all subjected to it at the end of the day. So I think really what the biggest thing that's really held things back is truthfully our ignorance to doing our own research. Too many times, especially when you think about the masses, we just run with the first thing that we hear.
Right.
And there's people that are 80 years old that have never gotten away from reefer madness and looking at that, or still have that same mindset. So I think basically, not only in the sense of what's going on at the powers that be, that control things and put things out and can create the storylines that we seem to jump on, is also the general public not taking accountability to say, you know what, let me do research, let me validate, let me get a better understanding, and not be so closed-minded. So I think what's going on here now is the fact that because of the last couple of generations, especially truthfully from the 60s, when you think about the biggest thing that happened in the 60s, were obviously we're going to think about civil rights is one of the major things that happened in the sense of being open-minded. But I think one of the biggest things that happened truthfully is when you think about just our makeup of the what we call the classic family makeup, right? And truthfully, it was almost a sexual revolution. Birth control was a big part of that, empowering women to be able to go ahead and have choice, to be able to go ahead if they wanted to actually have a child or not, empower them to be able to get into the workforce, which started to change the mindset, I think, of a lot of different things. So we think about all the things that were going on in the 60s, how we started to look at war, how we start to look at our communities, how we start to look at all these different things that were going on, the workforce, and I know a lot of that stuff started with Roosevelt and things of that sort, but that really, I think, stepped into hyperdrive in the 60s in the sense of the revolution. And I think those baby boomers that we talked about that came out of that age went into a little bit of a lull into the 80s, early 90s, and because of technology and the access to information, we're now back. To that age again, where we're in an age of enlightenment because we're able to get access to information, and we don't have to just see what's in the paper, what's on the TV. We can go ahead and do our own research. We can validate. We can get information from all over the entire world. We can find the person that's doing some research in some island someplace far away. We're never been connected because he can post that or she can post that thing on the internet. We're able to see that complete research paper. So access to information is what I believe is allowing us to go ahead and be able to move forward, because now we're able to go ahead and do our own validation of information, and we don't just have to listen to these generic sources of information anymore.
What is your opinion on media manipulation on the internet, though? Because certainly, there's the Timel thing. You can't believe everything you hear on the internet, and I do see a lot of misinformation. So I guess, how does that play into things?
It is probably the biggest thing that we're going to deal with in this generation right now, right? Is the fact that we are all in our bubbles more than we are, because everyone was always in a bubble, right? A bubble is the area that you grow up, the people that you grow up around, the things that you experience, right? So that creates the world that you know, and that's what creates our unconscious and conscious biases that we grow up with and makes our decisions every single day, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're in a bubble that's even worse, because we can find the bubbles that we want to be in. So if you believe something, especially on the internet, you can literally go ahead and start to just live in that world completely and not be outside of that. I think what we have to do is, as people, we have to start taking accountability for the things that we ingest, and also take accountability for digging a little bit deeper. I sometimes just feel, I call it shallow thinking, right? We just want to go ahead and be in the baby pool. We need to dive deep into things a little bit, have critical dialogue, ask the questions, and truthfully experience new things. The best thing that you can do for yourself to get out of your bubble is to experience something outside your bubble, to go ahead and give you perspective, and then make decisions. And I think that's the way that we continue to move forward. But I think it's a big issue. Obviously, we've seen that in the last political election. We continue to see the sense of what's going on in the social, how we are socializing as humans right now, and especially in America. But you can look at the entire world right now and the things that are going on. So it's a tough thing, because it's the world that I've been able to build my base on, but I also understand, the negative side of what's kind of going on with it. And I think just as especially parents, with young kids, we have to do everything that we possibly can to provide real world experiences to our children, so they can build some context around the things that they're seeing on the internet, because we're not going to get them off of it. At the end of the day, the only way to shut my kid up is to give them a tablet at the end of the day, and sometimes you just need them to be able to be quiet. So the best thing that I can do as a parent is to give them real world experiences, so they can put that together, create some context for themselves, to be able to go ahead and make the best decision, and widen that bubble a little bit as much as we can.
Yeah, and with the advancements in technology, obviously faking things is getting easier and easier. So that's something on the forefront of my mind. Another odd comparison that I drew with with the infancy of the cannabis industry. It's very similar to cybersecurity 20 years ago, where it's like, everyone's a hacker, and how do you prove that, right? Because nobody knows enough about, at the time, nobody knew enough about cybersecurity to say that guy's not legit or that guy is legit, right? So there are a lot of people selling snake oil. So it's interesting that there's definitely that world kind of coming up here, where it's hard to kind of see who's BSing you and who's not. So it's cool. You're kind of, I guess I see your school as kind of the truth test, right? You have something that's accredited, you have something that's certified, and you add legitimacy to a industry that otherwise doesn't have it.
That's correct.
So that's at least what I've taken away from it. Going back to kind of your marketing background, I'm kind of interested in. So when you went into that, you got into digital marketing when it was really hot, really new, right? And now I'm certainly not of that world per se, but
Yeah.
obviously I do market this podcast, so
Yeah.
there's pieces of it I've learned, and there are a lot of people that are selling webinars on how to be a marketer, right? And that really didn't, I think, come about until about, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where you have some of these like guys that are just really big on like hustle porn, and you just gotta close this, you gotta move this, some boiler room tactics. How much has marketing changed in the last 5 years? And where do you see it going?
So marketing has changed drastically in the last 5 years. So we think about it as 2019, so now we're going back to 2015, because the end of 2019. So 2015, thinking about now, we're pretty much at the height of, I would say, people really starting to validate social media, right? Because when I started this in 2012, social media marketing targeting was not available yet. We were one of the first in the beta testing to allow to be able to do some targeting ads. By 2015, that's when you start to see the transition of the big box retailers noticing how important social media was, not just because of the targeting, but this is where our influencers were really starting to go ahead and get into the game. And really start where you see now, people are making so much money being an influencer, right? So if you got some views on YouTube, you got some followers on Instagram and things of that sort, you're getting paid, in this day and age.
Sure.
So I think that's where we're going back to. I think the targeting created a crazy bubble, right? Which has some negative effects, right? Because you become clickbait at the end of the day, and it becomes clickbait because it's giving you exactly what you want. And that's tough to not go ahead and get down that funnel. We've all been subjected by finding something, then 30 minutes later, like, where the hell am I, and how long have I been sitting on this phone doing this, right? I'm down in this tunnel. I think where we're moving back into is, I think we're moving back into the real strong age of the influencers. I think in the next 5 years, influencers are going to continue to be the biggest thing when it comes to digital marketing, because they're able to go ahead and create these very targeted groups of people that are very much into their clique, right? They're into what they're doing, they're into their social life, they're into what they wear, they trust them, right? They've created a trusted brand where people trust them, right? So I think that's where we're really moving to. I think the next 5 years is the influencers are going to be the most popular thing when we're thinking about marketing, and you can see all the big box retailers are starting to move to that. So first they move to the targeting, and that's not going anywhere, because you're able to easily target and track and trend every single thing, but being able to have an influence put into a large part of your budget is going to be a big part of it, because as at same time as we were moving into this crazy digital age, it also, technology gave the access to people to start their own companies.
Right.
So when we grew up, it was all about the big name brand. Now it's about my brand. I want to wear my own gear, or I want to wear my friend's gear, or I want to wear this person's gear that created this and they did this by themselves. You know what I mean? So small businesses are coming back, and that's why influencers are going to continue to be more and more popular, because you're going to be able to use influencers to help grow your small brand into a bigger brand. And I think we're going to have more sub brands than we're going to have these big brands that just consolidate everything, which I think is a great thing, because it's creating more entrepreneurship, it's creating more uniqueness in the marketplace, and I think people allow them to be their true self. So instead of us fitting into the big box retailer box, we're allowed to now express ourselves in the way that we want to, what we're attached with. I think influencers are going to be the biggest thing that are going to go on for the next 5 years, and it's going to directly correlate with what's going on with small business growth right now and entrepreneurship.
That's interesting. So yeah, I definitely agree that, especially short term, influencers are getting up. I worry about, as somebody that's looking at advertising and paying for advertising, I worry about social media ads long term and their ability, because I feel like the veil has been lifted, and a lot of people are like, well, that's obviously a sponsored ad. I'm avoiding the sponsored content, or they're like mentally filtering it. I certainly am doing that. So I worry about like that almost like a bubble. So like, let's say the next 5 years is certainly kind of within those influencers. What happens after that? Like how does that? I feel like there's going to be a big retraction. I feel like people are going to move away from that. Do you have any insight into that?
The one thing about technology, the way that world moves right now, things move so fast. No one could have said in 2010 that we were all going to be in this digital targeted age, right? Advertising, because of technology, is only going to become more targeted. They're just going to be able to hit us in multiple channels now. So right now, what's going on is that we have to be on a network to be able to get a sponsored ad. Soon enough, they're going to be able to do that, just like in Minority Report, man. You're going to walk past a billboard, it's going to be able to pick you up, understand who you are. We're only being more connected. So the more connected we are, the more things are able to be pushed down to us in multiple channels. And so I think that the distribution channels are going to change, but the tactics are only going to get more refined, because we're going to be able to distribute digital content everywhere. because digital is going to take over everything. The analog stage of how things are, you know, you can just see it right now with billboards, right? So we've moved over to the side of the digital billboards, but you still have stationary, you know, billboards that are out there. I eventually feel that digital billboards are going to be able to start to be able to pop up in anywhere, any type of thing. You're going to be walking down the street, and now you see, like, they have them in downtown Cleveland, the kiosks and stuff, the digital kiosks. You're going to walk past that. That thing is going to be able to pick you up because your phone's going to be connected to a broader band network, right? We're all going to have Wi-Fi. It's all going to be connected. We're going to be able to track and move forward, right? All the technology we have, and that thing's going to be able to feed into you. You know, things that sort. I think your car is going to be able to feed into you. You know, billboards are going to come up every different places. Every place that you kind of go, the digital age is there because we're only going to be more connected. So, is it going to be the social media realm of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? You know, we'll see what they do in the sense of that.
See how they adapt to the market.
But digital is not going anywhere because it's only going to get more refined because every single day they're telling us a way that we can be better connected, and we love technology, man. So I think it makes our world more convenient and we're comfortable with it. So I think we'll always have our red flags that will go up. But you know, having a young kid right now, I'm looking at him, I'm like, how do I possibly get this kid off anything digital? His entire world is that. You know, I still have a basis of what it was before, you know, internet was available and things of that sort. I mean, I've definitely got to be the last generation where you went into a library, you went to the book and you pulled out. You had to go through, scroll and go find a book. You know,
well, we also lived through the digital identities being different. Because I remember, like early internet, especially like forums and all that, you always had an alias. You had a username, you had an avatar, and it's why would you be you? Like, you could be anything you wanted, right? I'm going to be, you know, a dragon with 5 swords for arms. I'm not going to be Michael Hudak. And so I remember seeing that transition, and Facebook was really that thing. Because even with MySpace, you had your MySpace username, right? And then slowly, very few people were like, hey, I'm this person. Maybe they started to transition a little bit, but then Facebook was, no, you have to give us your real identity. You have to be you. Right, and now when you go to forums, everyone's just like a name would be like M Hudak. They don't care. It's just that. So that idea of having an alias or having like a digital identity that's separate from your identity is gone, is completely gone. And so now you having young children, whatever they do on the internet will be there forever. Right, and they're gonna. That's just their life. That's how they live. I think there's all sorts of interesting things that come of that. I think that like a lot of the dumb things that we do in private are just out there now, and there's less shame around it because everyone's like, yeah, everyone does. Everyone picks their nose. You know, everyone sees that. Your facial recognition software saw you do it. Everyone does it. You know, it's just a thing you do. There's nothing to be ashamed of. So I think that it's a net positive thing. But it's certainly a different world that we're transitioning into. And
that's the thing is, transition is the right word. Transition is always tough because transition is change, it's growth. And to be able to grow, you have to go through pain, right? It's the one thing that goes through. So no matter if you're growing your education, if you're growing, you know, your body, whatever it is, you know, your habits. All those things is what's going to be changed. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be a net positive, but especially for us, it's going to be difficult because, you know, we remember yesteryear. So it's like, what's happening, right? I think what we have to do is, just like what we're doing in the cannabis world right now, or just in all types of different compounds, is we have to have critical dialogue around it. We have to really go ahead and be open about it. We have to have these tough conversations because we have to be able to look at this objectively and figure out the ways that we develop our world to be able to utilize this stuff the best way we possibly can and not utilize it in the wrong ways. I think the biggest issue that when I use the example of like alcohol. So alcohol in America for underage kids is a huge issue because we don't normalize it as much as countries abroad. When something becomes normalized, you're educated about it, you understand how to use it, you go ahead and respect it a bit more. For us, it's kind of held away from us. Say, don't use it bad. It's
and then you're 21, and then
or you're under 21, and all you do is you use it improperly. You binge drink. You know, the alcohol-related deaths that we have with kids under 21 are so high in America due to the fact that we don't normalize it, we don't educate, we don't have the critical dialogue. We just say no, and then anything a parent says no to a teenager and things of that sort is the one thing that a teenager wants to do to go ahead and kind of feel like they're an adult, right? So I think that's what we have to utilize with technology is that we can't say no, we can't just shut things down. We have to create a space that we can go ahead and teach and show and cultivate how do we utilize this. What do we do on this? So we can go ahead and still protect some type of privacy because I think it's important for us to still have that, but being able to utilize technology so we can continue to grow our world.
Oh, for sure. And, you know, I on that subject of comparing alcohol to marijuana, I think it's silly because like the statistics of violence and alcohol are way outweigh the statistics of marijuana and alcohol and violence. And I would rather be around a pothead all day than a raging alcoholic, right? So it's I just like see them, and like just from the anecdotal evidence that I have, like I'm like I'd much rather, like, this seems to be the obvious safer choice, right? But this is alcohol is certainly more normalized, right? There's still many people that are going to say, well, if you smoke weed, you're going to die, right? Like,
exactly.
Well, if you drink water, you're going to die too. On that note, right? So it's tough, As far as like the Cleveland School of Cannabis, though, what are your biggest challenges, and maybe some of the challenges you've already faced? Like how do you foresee, what hurdles do you need to come over?
So I say our biggest challenges right now is the fact that we are an ancillary business to the industry. We do not deal directly with the plant. We're a 100% education company. But because of the industry in itself, we get blanketed, right?
Sure.
So we get subjected to the same uphill battles that a dispensary would have. So when it comes to banking, when it comes to advertising, when it just comes to the general access to things. I think banking is the biggest issue that this entire industry is dealing with. We have a student that just graduated in June. He came back from California. He actually went to California. He was actually working in a dispensary there.
Okay.
He came back. He wanted to get a horticulture certificate here with us. He was actually, he's now blind due to the fact that he was attacked in a dispensary and actually shot in the head.
Okay.
Due to the fact
in an Ohio dispensary?
In a California dispensary. Okay. Due to the fact that there's so much cash on hand in dispensaries because of the inability to be able to bank properly. Yeah. He was subjected, and his life was put at risk because of that. Yeah. So just that simple matter that no one that's working in a legal market that's being taxed should be subjected to their life being risked because they're not able to put all their money in the bank, and now their employees are at risk because all that money is on hand. So I think banking is the biggest issue that we're dealing with. Banking reform needs to happen. It's important for it to happen. It's not to say that the banks don't want to be involved, because banks want to be in anything that's making money, right? Right. It's the fact that the federal government hasn't taken that next step to go ahead and at least put a bill in that will allow the banks to do legitimate business with the cannabis industry, so we could be protected, and then we could be a part of the system, because again, we're paying taxes like everyone else that pays into the FDIC that goes ahead and subsidize all the things that goes on with the banking system and all the other federal government funding funds. So that's the biggest hurdle. I think the second thing that we're dealing with outside of the banking regulations, truthfully, is just as I kind of go back, just the misinformation of the people that control the cards, right? So if they're misinformed and they're in a position of power, they're able to go ahead and debunk and restrict access to opportunities. Right. And that is the biggest thing about this industry, is nothing but opportunities. So if there's nothing but opportunities in the industry, but on the other end people are restricting access, it creates this weird kind of vacuum that we're in, where people are taking chances, they're trying to grow, but they're not really able to grow as much. That means patients are not able to get as much healing as that they're able to. Economically, we're not able to develop our communities as much as we're able to. All the different things that come from economic growth and federal growth and community growth, all these things of that sort, research, all that stuff is going to be stipend due to the fact that access is being restricted. So I think those are the two biggest things that we're fighting right now.
Do you hear a lot about people trying to implement blockchain or cryptocurrencies to kind of circumvent that?
Definitely, cryptocurrency I think has been a part of the cannabis industry right away since cryptocurrency became
because you're buying it off the Silk Road, and
correct. It became an avenue to go ahead and do things. The thing with that is you're now asking the general consumer to go ahead and understand cryptocurrency and be in that market, and that's just not.
I just did like 6 podcasts in a row of nerds trying to get people on that, so I get those struggles.
So now if I'm looking at my 50-year-old mother that needs to go ahead and get cannabis, I now have to go ahead and show her how to use cryptocurrency. Man, I'm just trying to go ahead and get her how to use Google Maps properly. Cryptocurrency is not the conversation that I want to have with my mother, and it's unrealistic, because majority of our patients, especially in Ohio, are above 40 at the age of 40. So now we're telling them to go into technology that barely the 20-year-olds understand. It's just a very, very tough thing, and it makes it a very, when you think about a consumer product, right? So at the end of the day, when it's in a dispensary, this is a retail operation. Everything that you do from a retail operation is to create a great consumer experience, right now cryptocurrency would not create a great consumer experience, which would only drive people back to the black market, which will only go ahead and hurt the medical market and the cannabis industry itself.
Right.
So right now, due to the fact of the access to cryptocurrency and being able to understand it and the ease to use it, it doesn't really help it as much as people would hope it did. Hope it would have when cryptocurrency was getting popular, especially with the roadblocks that were going on in the cannabis industry from a banking standpoint.
What are the ramifications to the black market losing all their cannabis revenue? Do you guys think about that? Because obviously those people are gonna. I mean, some people. Well, I get this illegitimate, but those people are losing their income.
So,
and those people most likely won't go into legally doing it because they don't. There's a reason why they were doing it illegally in the first place.
So, I think we will have a major negative effect if we don't have criminal justice reform with cannabis. Obviously, we need criminal justice reform, period. But directly around the cannabis legalization, there needs to be directly criminal justice reform around cannabis as well. So if we allow those people records and things like that to be expunged so they don't have any federal cases against them, and I'm talking about people directly dealing in cannabis. Anything else, obviously, that's a different conversation. But if we're directly dealing in cannabis, if we have the right type of reform when it comes from a federal level of criminal justice, it'll allow them to give them the access. Because at the end of the day, these are some of the people that hold a lot of the knowledge, right? So we want these people in the marketplace. We want as much knowledge in the marketplace. So I think it's a hand-in-hand thing. So I don't. It would be. The federal government will completely drop the ball if they pass federal legalization and they don't pass a major criminal justice reform in the sense of the cannabis industry at the same time. Those need to be simultaneously, and that's what's going to go in and help it. Now, obviously, there's going to be people that are going to be affected by it. They're going to affect families and all that. But I think if we're able to go ahead and have that transition, again, with allowing those people to be able to get in the legal market, they have the knowledge, and those are the people who are going to be so. Because at the end of the day, they have the knowledge. They're already entrepreneurs. They've already built businesses. They already have clientele. So allow them to be able to go ahead and do this legally and tax them and go ahead and be able to contribute, positively to the community. At that point, that we can really make major change. So those two things have to happen simultaneously, I believe, for us not to have the issues. Now, if we do not have them simultaneously, that's when we're going to see the major backlash on that. And that's where we're going to have the issues.
I'm definitely worried about that because I definitely think that that's something we'll fumble. From a federal level, that's probably
most likely.
If that's something we screw up, that's definitely something we'd screw up. So. So listen, man, I really appreciate you coming on. We're kind of wrapping it up, but how can people find you? What are any asks that you might have for somebody? Obviously, you want people to get educated, but you have the floor. Plug anything you want to plug.
So the easiest way to find us is our website, csceducation.com. So that's csceducation.com. Everything is on there about our school, about our program on our website. We have an open house in each campus every single month. All we ask really for people is to go ahead and take a chance and inquire. Come to an open house, have a conversation at the dinner table about it. Start to go ahead and talk about this in the light. The example that I always use is that there's 10 people at a dinner table. The 4 people that don't support cannabis are the loudest people at the table. The 6 that do don't because they feel that they're going to be typecasted, they're going to be pushed to the side. The 6 that are quiet, we need to speak up. We need to speak about this in the light. You might not want to work in the cannabis industry. You might want to interact with cannabis in a recreational or medical type thing. But cannabis is going to be the next opportunity to go ahead and really create economic opportunities, medical opportunities, and ways to really change the world. So for us to get educated and understand how we get to interact with cannabis is all I continue to ask for people is to go ahead and get out of our bubble a little bit, take a chance, learn something, and go ahead and see what opportunities might be available for you. Because there's nothing but opportunities, especially if we all dive into this.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I'll have all those links in the description, or at least the link to the website. And then should you want to share your LinkedIn, I'll put that there too. If not, you'll have to hunt for them. Thanks again. I said thank you like 400 times. I guess we're going to end this podcast. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.